Again, here to talk to you today about Charlotte Smith's Sonnet number 36. Just to review, how to read poetry. Remember, you ask yourself, how does the form of the poem, how does the way it's constructed, help create or disturb its meaning? To answer this, you must first figure out, 1, the poem's form. How did the writer manipulate the language? Look for patterns and weird things. Number 2, the poem's meaning. What does it mean? How do the patterns and weird things make meaning? I know I sound repetitive, but as my 9th grade English teacher, Mr. Hawks, always said, repetition is the mother of all learning, which is itself a personification of repetition, as if repetition is the mother that gives birth to meaning. We're going to talk about repetition today, or about personification today. All right. Ooh, I hope my dog doesn't bark. Nope, no barking. No barking. It's okay. All right. Expectations, again, I want you to circle and look up every word you do not know. Write the definition in the margin. You need to identify patterns and weird things. Look for weird things. Rhyme scheme, imagery, speakers, etc. Finally, figure out the literal meaning. Always look, what is the story? What is literally happening in this part? You can't get to the bigger meaning unless you start with the basics. Then you get to the greater meaning. What is the point, and why didn't the writer just say the meaning directly? What does the poetic form do for the meaning? Like, why'd they write it in a poem in the first place? Okay, let's talk about Charlotte Smith. I feel great sadness in my heart when I think about her. She's a similar lifespan to, she's a little later than Thomas Gray, overlaps a little bit with William Wordsworth. Not sure if they knew each other. Again, she's another English person, but this time she wasn't so grand. She had a sad life. Very sad. But her poems and novels became quite famous. The reason it was sad was her husband went to jail for debt. That was a thing back then. If you went into debt and you owed people money, you'd be put in jail. Not only that, you had to pay to be in jail. And people lived in jail with their whole families. So, like, she was in jail, her kids were in jail. She and her kids could get out during the day, but they had to be back at night. That was a thing. We're talking like, late 1700s England. Finally, she left him. Whew. And she had to write for a living so she could support the kids. This was a big deal for a woman to do, write for a living, be a professional writer of poetry and fiction. She revived the sonnet form for English literature at the time. She became famous for her sonnets. We're reading one of them. And that's a big deal. She brought it back. So, really fast, before we look at the poem, let's talk a bit about sonnets. I'm sure you've heard this before. Any Shakespeare sonnets, sometimes you read those in high school. They're always 14-lined poems. Always, always, always. That's the big tip-off. If it's got 14 lines, it's probably a sonnet, or it's aware that it's like a sonnet. Although Shakespeare did have one 15-lined sonnet, which was probably for a joke. They're usually, though not always, associated with love. Oh, that got cut off the quotation mark. So Shakespeare's sonnets are famously written with lovers in mind, and in fact, fun fact, quite a few of Shakespeare's sonnets are written to a man. How many of you knew that fun fact? I love that fun fact. Does this mean Shakespeare was gay? No. Gay was like not a term they used. It went back in his day, but was he in love with a man? Well, he wrote some good poems for a man. I love that fact. Oh, it often blows people's minds. Okay, but this is a digression. Let's get back to Charlotte Smith and sonnets. So, there are different types of sonnets, and the way you can figure them out, which one it is you look at the rhyme scheme. So, we're getting good at that. Shakespearean sonnet or an English sonnet, these are the kind that Smith mostly wrote. They have a rhyme scheme of A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. As you know, a group of 4 lines of poetry is called a quatrain, and it ends with a 2-line group called a couplet. I didn't give you a copy that's printed with these marked out, but that's what you would say. That's what they're called. You need to know the word couplet. You don't have to memorize the rhyme scheme, by the way. You can always look it up. I always have to look it up. The other kind of sonnet is the Italian or Petrarchan sonnet. You'll see ABBA, ABBA, CDE, CDE is the rhyme scheme. It means there's fewer sounds in this poem. It's much harder. You have to stick to just a couple rhyme sounds. So if you want to write one, you are welcome to. I will give you extra credit for writing a sonnet in either of these forms. Again, you don't have to memorize it. I don't know it by heart. I always have to look it up. But you need to know that that exists. One thing that's always cool to look for in a sonnet, and it makes you sound smart if you know about this, there is always something called a volta, which again is Italian, means a turn. It's like a turn or a twist in the mood or meaning. A twist. Always look for it. You can always be like, the volta occurs in line 12 or whatever. It's not always in the same place. Something to look for in a sonnet. So, something you want to look at. All right, I'm going to come back to this in a minute. Let's go look at the poem itself. My dog is losing his patience, so I hope he doesn't bark. Okay. I know. You're tired. Okay, so we have sonnet number 36. Let's check out the rhyme scheme just for old time's sake. Okay, which one? Let's go with rainbow. Okay, should the lone wanderer fainting on his way? That's the A. Okay. Hours is B. I know, okay, go. Lay is A. See, we're not even reading the poem, we're just looking at this. Flowers rhymes with hours, that's B. Getting better at this. Tree, okay, we got a new, so way, lay, hours, flowers. Tree is our next letter, C. Lose, D. Poésie is like another way of saying poetry. So poésie and tree definitely rhyme, that's a C. Muse, lose, muse, okay, that's a D. Day. Oh, we've got the A rhyme, but we'll just call it E. E. This is a funny pen. Come. Okay, come and tomb. See, you can see these don't really rhyme that well, but poets can stretch it, right? So let's call that F. They can stretch it, or they might actually purposefully be messing up the rhyme just to make a point. So let's pay attention to that. So day away is E. Come and tomb. I'm just going to call it F. You put a little question mark. Oops, that's a bad question mark. Let's see, F. Sure, more. Okay, what do we call it? A group of 2 lines together. We call that a couplet. You need to know that word. This is what we call a rhyming couplet. This is really distracting color, but I like it. Rhyming couplet. So you would say the poem ends with a rhyming couplet. All right, so we've got classic Shakespearean sonnet form here. So I'm just gonna classic Shakespeare sonnet. All right, let's look at this. Find some words we don't know, perhaps. Already seeing a few. Should the lone wanderer Lone means alone. Should the lone wanderer fainting on his way, okay, so we got a guy wandering. I'm going to change this color here. He's wandering and he's fainting. So he's tired, weary. Should the lone wanderer fainting on his way rest for a moment of the sultry hours? So should he, sultry, you're going to look that up. It means like hot, humid. It's uncomfortable to be wandering in the sultry hours, right? So, should the lone wanderer fainting on his way rest for a moment of the sultry hours? Should he take a rest? She's like, you can say if the lone wanderer here. That's a sort of old-fashioned should. If the lone wanderer fainting on his way took a rest for a moment in the hot hours, and, she's continuing, and though his path through thorns and roughness lay. So what kind of path is this? This is like, it's getting rough. Remember, we're looking for the literal meaning. You should be picturing a tired guy, late afternoon, it's hot, and his path is through thorns and roughness. So this is like a rough path. If he plucks the wild rose or the woodbine's gadding flowers. What is a woodbine and what is gadding? So we go over to the Google and type in woodbine. Okay, definition. Okay, it's like a shopping mall in New Jersey, but okay, it's a climbing plant. It's like ivy. And what's the other word we need here? Gadding flowers. Gadding. Going from one place to the other in person. So, woodbine's gadding flowers. So you got a picture like, let's look up woodbine flowers. Images. Oh, that's lovely. That's quite lovely. I'm going to just copy and paste that here. I'm going to probably mess up the whole... Oh, yeah. Really, I messed it up. Yeah, I knew that would happen. So, through... let's just make that real small. I should just leave that there for next year. Okay. Wrap text. Let's do behind text. There. Okay, we've got a woodbine flower. It's just like real small. I'm going to bring it down here. Oh, it's just messing up everything. Okay, we got a picture. Here we go. This is the appropriate size, more or less. So you get good at the computer when you do this. All right. So, but now this is all messed up. Oh, there we go. Okay, so let's say he's wandering around. Here's the woodbine flower. So he's picking roses or this kind of flower, whatever that is. The woodbines, gadding flowers, climbing around flowers, weaving gay wreaths beneath some sheltering tree. So here's this guy. He's decided to take a rest. He's picking some flowers. He's weaving wreaths. You know, like flower wreaths. Look up flower wreaths. Oh, now that's lovely. So now this is what he's doing with these roses and woodbine gadding flowers. So let's say he's taking a break. He's weaving some wreaths. He's just goofing off, basically. He's relaxing. Let's write that. Relaxing. See how we're breaking it down? I know it looked hard at first, right? But now you're getting it. So this guy, he's taking a break. He's under a sheltering tree. It's so lovely. So if he does all that, the sense of sorrow he a while may lose. Notice there's a semicolon here. You can treat these like periods, or like it's a stop. It's stronger than a comma, not quite as strong as a period. So she's saying, if the lone wanderer rests for a moment, he might become happy again. He'll lose his sense of sorrow for a while, maybe. It's not like a cure. Notice she's like, maybe in just a while. Okay? That's important. Those are things you could talk about. All right. Okay, so what's her point? So we got a guy. You're picturing it now, right? So, remember, an apostrophe means a letter's missing. Charmed. There's an E there. So charmed my way with friendship and the muse. Wow. Okay, so this is all one sentence here. This part, all one sentence. And then this is one sentence. And this is where, there's a break, right? Oh my gosh. So this is a really long sentence and then a short sentence. That's something you could write about. So charmed my way with friendship and the muse. This is a hard sentence. Sometimes poets invert. This is a word you need to know. Invert the sentence. They flip it around. Flipped sentence. So let's put it in normal order. So charmed my way with friendship and the muse. Maybe it's not inverted. So charmed my way. So I charmed my way with friendship and the muse. It's not an inverted sentence. Sometimes the professor gets ahead of herself. So I would paraphrase this as so, or in that way, I charmed friendship and the muse. Oh, okay. So this is the way in which I charmed friendship and the muse. So the way this guy stopped and made wreaths of flowers, that's the way I charmed friendship and the muse. This is very complicated. What is she even talking about? You got to keep reading to find out. But notice what's going on here. Let's just switch colors for a second. Friendship. Remember, I told you, look for weird things, right? And the muse. What's weird here is that these are capitalized. Why are they capitalized, for heaven's sake? Okay? Well, they're kind of being given person qualities. She's charming them. What do we call it when you give person qualities to non-person objects? Give you a hint. Person. Personification. Oh, jeez. This is not my forte. Personification. It's in your prosody handbook. Personification. You need to know this word. It means giving person qualities to non-person things, okay? You're taking notes, right? So, we're learning about how she, the poet, charmed friendship and the muse. Now, what is a muse? Let's just give you a muse. Poetry. There's a muse of poetry. You see, there's all these muses. Go to Wikipedia. Like I said, all your professors use Wikipedia. Muses. In ancient Greek religion and mythology, the muses, blah, 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 are the inspirational goddesses of literature, science, and the arts. So if you're a poet, you really want to charm these women because then they will inspire you to write poems. So she's saying this stuff that he's doing there, relaxing, making flower wreaths, that's how she charmed friendship, and that's how she charmed the muse. That's how she got the muse to help her write poetry. Now you might be thinking, I've taught this many times and students are always like, how do you know that? Like, this is hard. I'm just telling you right now, I read this poem when I was 18 years old in an English class, and my professor helped me learn how to read it. And it's you can do it too. You just have to practice. Okay, but, remember what I told you? There's going to be a twist. But, oh no, but, that's what we call a signal word. But darker now grows life's unhappy day. Oh gosh. Here we go again. Dark. Oh, we're getting repetition here. Dark and dark. Dark with new clouds of evil yet to come. Okay, this part's very clear. Things are getting bad. The next few lines are very difficult. But notice again, look for these weird things. It's weird. Some things are capitalized that aren't usually capitalized. Her pencil, sickening fancy, throws away. All right, this is an example of an inversion here. Inversion. Flipped sentence. So it's like fancy throws away her sickening fancy. Fancy is getting sick. She throws away her pencil. Inverted sentence here. So sickening fancy throws away her pencil. Oops. But what is fancy? Well, here fancy has a meaning. It's not just like fancy clothes that you wear to prom. It's fancy meaning imagination. If you're a poet or a writer or an artist, it's really helpful to have some imagination. It's fancy. It's what creates fantasy. It's what you get from the muse if you've charmed her enough. Okay, so we've got fancy throwing away her pencil. So fancy is being given human qualities here. We call that personification. And fancy is getting sick. That sucks. All right, and weary hope reclines upon the tomb. Again, you'll notice the personification here. Hope is tired. She's losing hope. Where is hope in this image? Hope is reclining upon a tomb, just like Thomas Gray sitting in the churchyard. Hope, the poet's hope, is tired, reclining on the tomb, and points my wishes to that tranquil shore where the pale spectre care pursues no more. Spectre is a word for ghost. Okay, so points my hope is reclining on the tomb and is pointing my wishes. So let the speaker, probably the poet, this is describing a writer here. So pointing my wishes to that tranquil shore where the pale spectre care pursues no more. Again, we've got a personification. Care, normally like care is probably not a ghost, but here care is like a ghost. Care has died and is no longer in pursuit. Like basically she doesn't care anymore. This idea of the tranquil shore is what we call, I would say, an illusion. And to those of you who like Greek mythology, you might know about Hades. There's a new Broadway play about Hades. Hades, there's a river that you cross, and the river is the river Styx, and when you drink it, you forget. So it's possible she's alluding to that here. I mean, there's other Greek illusion here. This is an illusion as well, the muse. So let's take a look. Look at these great annotations. Okay, so let's just go back to this. The presentation. Before I get to these questions here, let's see. Here we go. So here she is. I drew this. Me seeking poetry's flowers, aka poems. And then here's fair poesy with the poems. But poetry needs to give her the inspiration, right? She needs to write a good poem. So have I sought thy flowers, fair poesy. That's what that's a picture of. So you could look at these. These are ideas right here for things you could illustrate. You could draw a picture of Fancy throwing away her pencil because she's getting sick. She no longer wants to write. Hope is tired. Hope lying on a tomb. You could draw the pale specter Care. I forgot this part. The pale part. Lost all color. And let's go back to this. This is the wrong one. Alright, answer the following. Well, that didn't look good. Form. What is the rhyme scheme? What type of sonnet is it? Okay, so we figured that out. It's a Shakespearean sonnet. Why does it look like that? I don't know. Oh, here we go. Let's just look at it this way. Who is talking here? Well, we don't really know, but it seems like it's a poet talking, right? Someone who likes to get inspiration, but they've lost their inspiration. Here's another literary term you need to know, apostrophe. This is a term that means addressing an inanimate object or something that can't respond. So, who is the speaker talking to? So have I sought thy flowers, fair poesy. She's talking to poetry. Personification. What three feelings are being given human characteristics at the end of the poem? Well, we've got Fancy being likened to someone who can get sick. Hope, reclining on the tomb. Hope, the thing, hope can't recline on things, right? And then we've got Care, who's like a pale ghost. Hey, Keiko. Hold on, my dog's eating. How? What is the message of this poem? Well, that's something I'd like to see you guys discuss. Obviously, it's about losing hope, trying to get inspired, but losing the ability. Analysis. This is the real question I'm interested in. If sonnets are usually about love poems, then whom is the speaker in love with? That's a good question. Why did she write a love poem about being depressed? We could kind of ask that question about all of her sonnets. All right, I will leave you with that. I hope those questions are provocative to you. And good luck with everything.